I'm Pat Miller, and this is the Professional Photographer Podcast. We are in for a treat today, boys and girls, because I somehow got the golden ticket. I've been invited to sit down with the big cheese, the CEO of PPA, David Trust. And when I get the chance for us to go in and sit down with him, I want to make sure that I'm ready with all the stuff that we need to know about. So I'm going to ask him about AI. Like, what is really going on? What do lawmakers think about AI? What is the organization doing about it? I want to ask him about copyright and how that is coming along. I want to ask him about what the organization is doing to help you build a better business. I want to ask about imaging because, oh my gosh, it's coming up real soon. And why is that such a big deal to the organization? And I want to ask about the economy too. Is it going to get better? Is inflation going to go down? Like, what is he seeing from headquarters in Atlanta? So I got a big old list of questions that I want to ask him about. And if you're a PPA member, I think you want to hear this stuff too. So we are going into the corner office. Are you ready? PPA CEO David Trust standing by. We'll talk to him next. David Trust, welcome to the Professional Photographer Podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing really well. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm excited for this opportunity to sit down with you and kind of like go in your office and close the door and just see what's on your mind and talk about how PPA is serving members and what members can expect about what's happening now and what's to come, because I know that you're working a lot of exciting things. But let's start here. From your seat as the leader of the organization, what are the realities of being a professional photographer today from what you see?
A great question, by the way. That's an outstanding first question. It's fair to say that they've changed. It's changed since when I first got here, right? The expectations of what professional photographers needed, what it meant to be a professional photographer. In the most foundational terms, it is the same, and that photographers are, the keepers of our family histories, the keepers of what is real, right? The keepers of our societal memory, and so that hasn't changed, and we can talk more about that if you want later. But it's and so that is the same, but the business models and the processes have changed. And the reason that has changed so much is consumers have changed, right? I mean, none of us are the consumer that we were 5 years ago, or certainly not 10 years ago or 20 years ago, 25 years ago. So I got here 27 years last month. And in that period of time, of course, photography has changed. And some people say, wow, the industry has just changed so much. Well, it's because consumers have changed, right? And every industry serves its consumer. And so consumer expectations have changed. The way they purchase have changed depending on where you are in financial cycles. The amount of money they have to spend has changed. And some people think, wow, this is the best ever. Photography's really hit its stride. And then 5 years later, it's a little bit different. And they're down in the dumps and they're saying it's the end of photography. And then, and then it goes back up again because the economy is always cyclical. And so it's always adapting. It's always changing. And Pat, it's always been a technology industry, right? I mean, before photography, some people don't think of it that way, I guess. But before photography, the way we captured those moments in time was called paintings, portraiture, and it was sketching and drawing and painting. And that's how we froze a moment in time, although that was really not freezing it. So it's always been a technology industry. From its very, very earliest days, the technology was mind-blowing. And it has continued to progress, over time, and that hasn't changed today. I mean, it's still at the very cutting edge of technology and what it can do. And then when you throw AI in, which is not photography, but obviously is tangential to photography, when you throw that in, it poses all new kinds of situations and questions to answer, and in some cases threats, and in a lot of cases opportunities, and those kinds of things. So photography, really long answer to your very concise question, is that photography is it's changing. And our advice to photographers is you have to be nimble and you have to continue to be open to change, because all great photographers in the past have been.
100 years from now, the CEO of PPA will look back on your time at PPA and think, how in the world did he do that? Because when you started, we weren't using Photoshop. We weren't using computer editing. The technology is so different now to be proficient at what you do and how you deliver and create products and satisfy customers. Everything has changed. It's as if your job changed. Do you find yourself doing completely different stuff now than what you were doing when you started?
Yeah, I will mostly, right? There are some things that are always going to be the same, right? There's the leadership part of it. There's working with boards of directors and with committee members and our national council, and those folks are all wonderful, and they've been a pleasure to work with over the years, and that has been fairly consistent. But the job changes because everything about our offerings needs to change, right? And to stay relevant, just like a professional photographer or a podcast has, just to stay relevant, you have to be offering something that consumers need, right? So when our members have a new reality, a new problem, we weren't as litigating of a society 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. Although, Americans were still litigating back then, but we weren't as litigating as we are now. So protections end up being a little bit different, right? And so our job changes because we have to remain relevant to our customer, just like any other business, And our business, a lot of people think that our business, PPA's business, is photography. In reality, we love photographers. We promote photography. We sustain photographers. Our business isn't photography. Our business is benefit and value creation and dissemination for professional photographers, right? And then also we are the industry watchdog, because photographers would have a hard time being that themselves. But I mean, it's our job to protect the industry from predatory products or techniques or new technology, mm-hmm. AI in some cases, or predatory laws, or the lack of laws to protect photography. So the absence of laws that would protect photography. So to remain relevant, we have to change. And I'll tell you, you would be surprised on the inside here how much we talk about remaining relevant and what it is we need to do to serve our customers. It's 100% about customers. Mm-hmm. I mean, it always is. I've been asked by so many associations over the years, how did you do this? I mean, how'd you make this happen? I mean, how did we happen? And the answer was, listen, you figure out what's keeping your consumer awake at night, this month or mm-hmm. this year, and solve that problem. That's how you remain relevant, right? I mean, you just have to constantly be assessing on what the issues are and trying to find new ways to solve the problem, and still be a company of only about 50 people, just a little bit less than 50 people. So, we fight above our weight class a lot, and we're proud of that, but, it can be difficult at times.
I have 1,000 questions of what it's like to go to Capitol Hill and advocate for the industry, about AI as well. But the thing that I really love with my background, I really love that there are two parts of your name, photographers, so you're advocating for the industry, but the professional part, you're an industry made up of primarily small business owners. So as you look at the industry of small business owners, if you were sitting down with one of your members trying to make profit at the end of the month, where would you guide their attention? What would you ask them to start focusing more on right now?
Sometimes it's a tough sell. Okay. And I understand why, because these are artists, and they're great artists, and they're committed artists. They're passionate artists. And what they do is important to our world, right? I mean, you don't have to look any further than every office and every home in America, every office building in America, to see what professional photographers contribute to our world, the color and the interest and the that they contribute to our world. So they are important, and to them, we want to make sure that they realize just how important they are to our society and to help them understand, what their role is in our world. And so, for us, we have to remain relevant by, you know, teaching them exactly who they are. Now they want to instantly, they all pick up a camera and they want to take pictures. And that's a giant part of it, right? And they need to be great photographers. We want them, we teach them that. We teach them how to be great photographers. And most of them coming out of universities, colleges and universities, they'll be the first to, in fact, the colleges and universities will be the first to tell you that they don't teach them how to hang out a shingle, right? They only teach them how to use the camera. And lighting and that kind of thing. And they give them their first steps, kind of like being, maybe, well, probably not even a first degree black belt, but, maybe a brown belt or something,
Yeah.
coming out, green belt or whatever, coming out of colleges or universities. And then we take that and we help them become a black belt, and then eventually a second degree black belt, and a third degree, and a fourth degree, because photography, and I'm so fascinated by all of our friends and all these people I've met. I've been just blessed to meet over the years, who are professional photographers. They continue to strive to take it to another level, a greater level, to do more, to explore more. And it's remarkable. So they're good at that. What they're not good at is handling the business part. And so the thing that I think is most important is to help them to see the balance, that you can't be one-sided. If you're all business, all sizzle and no steak, then you're not going to succeed. If it's just all about the way you brand yourself and market, but your photography is bad, you're going to destroy your brand. You can't do it that way. But you can also be a great photographer and not get your business, and not get the entrepreneurial parts of things, not understand branding, not understand, the need to sort of develop habits that get you out of bed in the morning and make you go do the things that you're supposed to do, all those entrepreneurial things, that you have to work on. Those are the things that I think are tougher sometimes, Pat. And so the thing that I would emphasize or think about the most, when I come into the office, it's how do we help photographers understand all of it? How do we help them be successful? And remember, most people on PPA staff were not photographers. Most aren't. We have some, but most are not photographers. They are event planners and finance people, right? And sales people and leadership, people. And our job is to understand our customer and what their needs are through research and other things to kind of help them through that. I don't know if I answered that question. I probably over answered the question.
No, it's fantastic. I love hearing you talk about it because business is so important. If someone doesn't have the capability to sell something for more than what it costs to make, they won't be a professional photographer for much longer.
Yeah. And honestly, a lot of people, when you talk about selling it for more than it costs to make, I mean, a lot have struggled with that, right? They don't understand their cost of sales, and they don't understand the cost of them just working on something, their own value, the value of their own labor. You know what I mean? And they don't charge for those things. And then when they get to their finances at the end of the year and they realize, I didn't make anything. In fact, I lost money. Well, that's why, because they don't understand that. And so our education, everywhere we offer education, our education is broken into 3 silos, basically. We don't love to talk about silos, but 3 verticals, basically. And so the first vertical, it would always be photography, professional photography. The second vertical, of course, is business, understanding your business. And listen, I remember working with one of our past presidents, Ann Monteith, and all of our past presidents. And back in about 2000, the idea of teaching business was, it was frowned upon. We couldn't drag people kicking and screaming into a business class. We almost tried, and there would be 7 people in a room that was set up for 300. And then slowly that grew. And then business became as popular and then more popular than photography classes because we are professional and photographers, right? We are both of those things, and they started to get it. And then we added the entrepreneurial skills. We call that gap education because it's the gap. It represents the gap between the consumer and the photographer. For some reason, there was this gap that had appeared there where photographers weren't relating well and understanding how they needed to reach out to their consumer. And so that's a gap education, but it's really entrepreneurial skills, eliminating negativity, understanding how to create an actionable vision, understanding, how to speak to people, how to get help, if you need, making presentations and those kinds of things. And there's a lot of gap education, but we have three very distinct verticals when it comes to our education. And that's why, because it's not enough to be a good photographer and it's not enough to just be a good business person. You need to be balanced and do well. But being a starving artist is overrated.
Being a starving artist is overrated because food is good. And I think we can decriminalize the business side of things for a photographer if we can reconnect the purpose of business. The purpose of business is not to be a salesperson, used car salesperson. The purpose of business is to solve someone's problem. And I want to circle back to something you said earlier because I think it's really inspirational to help people frame their business. Photographers get to stop time. They get to capture the moment. They are, I think you said, the recorders of history. That kind of mission and problem that's being solved is not something that's going away. And perhaps if an artist that needs to business could understand that's what their business provides, maybe that would warm them up to the idea of improving their business skills.
Yeah, it sounds a little dramatic, I guess, to some people. I think most people appreciate it, but it is true. And I say this, pretty frequently, I think, and that from that first moment in time when a photographer, Louis Daguerre, was able to capture a Paris street corner in 1839. First time mankind actually froze a moment in time with a person in it, actually froze a moment in time. From that moment on, professional photographers became the keepers of what is real in our world. It is them. They are the keepers of what is real. And that hasn't changed. I mean, they have recorded our huge successes, our centennial celebrations. They recorded our worst disasters, the Hindenburg and wars, and our worst social injustices, our greatest achievements, and in life. And they are the keepers of what is real. But along with that, included in that, they're the keeper of our societal memory. Our family histories, our personal histories, our national, our world histories. It is photographers who are the keepers of that. And that comes with some responsibility, right? But it means that photographers and photography is valuable. And when we're up on Capitol Hill, that resonates. That everyone agrees with that. Nobody disagrees. Everyone says, photographers are the keepers of what is real. Now, overlay that onto where we are in our world right now with, for instance, AI, which everyone loves. And at the exact same time, everybody's terrified of it, right?
Yeah.
So we have that love and terrified relationship with AI. Everybody does. And so lay that over AI where the differentiation between what is real and what's not real is becoming blurred. Professional photography will save the world in that way, in that it is the keeper of what is real, and it will always be the keeper of what is real. And that's going to be more and more important. So photography is not dwindling in some ways. I've heard photographers say that, this strange negativity bias that's built inside of them, that photography and the importance of photography is going down. No, photography and the importance of photography is ratcheting up because of AI and because it's hard to know what's real in our world. Let me ask you this, Pat. You and I are out and we see a beautiful image, aspens on a mountainside, sun exactly at the right place, just gorgeous, gorgeous image, right? And I ask you, wow, that's really beautiful. And we're just sort of oogling this amazing, beautiful image. And then I ask you, is that something that maybe you would consider purchasing? And the answer is probably, you may not purchase it, but yeah, I'd consider purchasing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That would probably be your answer.
Sure.
Now, if I say, well, it turns out that image is AI, what just happened to the value of that image? I mean, it went through the floor.
Yeah.
Right? Because putting fake nature on our walls is not something that really is attractive to humanity. We are all drawn to what is real. We are not as drawn to sci-fi and fake nature and that kind of thing, right? And so nobody's going to be putting AI children on their walls. Now there is going to be some loss because of AI, but I think some of that is going to cycle around. For instance, there's a lot of fake nature already out on the internet that you can buy. You can buy fake nature. And so you have to look at what that means for a nature photographer who jumps on an airplane, rents a Jeep, goes and camps in the wilderness, or wherever for 3 weeks or 5 weeks or whatever, shoots 17,000 images, brings them back, goes through those images, works on them, sorts them, works on them, hopefully files the copyright for those, and then tries to sell them. So just to recoup that expense of all of that time, food and, the travel and the stay and the work and the days not working because you're working on these images. I mean, you have to be able to justify that. Mm-hmm. So that's the problem that, for instance, nature and wildlife photographers are facing and will continue to face for a while. But pretty soon, because fake nature is all out there on the internet right now, but that's not going to last. Why? Because humanity doesn't really value that. And there's already, this pendulum has swung back some, and there's already beginning to be a significant backlash against companies that use fake images. People don't like it. They don't want, even if it's beautiful, I don't want fake nature. You know what I mean? We want real. So there's a patience there. There's a cycle that's going to be, that will continue to work. There's a patience that's going to be required. Do we think nature, wildlife, as an example, is going to have some difficult times? Yeah, but I mean, as some of them have said to me, it's always difficult to be a nature wildlife photographer, and so there's that. But do I think that AI is going to replace photography? Absolutely not. I think it's going to shed a bright light on the importance of what's real in our world. And ultimately, I think that's going to be a good thing. I do think it'll hurt commercial advertising photographers some. For a while. And I think that same human backlash will occur in that situation also. So I think we're in a cycle, and photography has been in many cycles over the years. We're in one right now as the result of AI.
And this is new, but I'm not sure if the entire concept is new. Every photographer that's done their own editing has fiddled around in Photoshop or Lightroom and gone too far to where the image is no longer authentic. It's as if we can all have this meter or intuitive feeling of the value of imperfection. When it goes too far and that person doesn't look like them anymore, it's almost as if we all know that's too much. Dial it back a little bit. And how do we articulate the perfection of imperfection as we're capturing the reality of the moment? Because AI will generate a, aesthetically perfect picture, but that realness factor, it's just not there.
Yes. I mean, it stinks to get old, right? So we want the photographer to make us look the way we remember ourselves, which is always about 38, right? 38 to 44. That's where we freeze our lives. And so we want the photographer to make us look like that, but we don't look like that. And authenticity and being real is much more important in our world and in our life than just looking artificially good. I had this very discussion. A lot of headshot artists, photographers were concerned, because you can grab several of your own images, you can feed them into these headshot companies, and AI will spit out some headshots for you. But and while some people say they are getting better, they're still all pretty terrible. And not only that, I have very specifically heard backlashes from employers who don't appreciate the fact that they get an AI headshot from a prospective employee. You know what I mean? And that they don't like it. I mean, they don't like the artificial nature of it. They don't like the fakeness of it. They want authenticity and authentic people, and they don't want someone sending them something that doesn't look like them. Right. So I think that pendulum is going to swing back. And I think so. What is going to be acceptable in retouching?
Mm-hmm.
There's always been, I guess, sort of a code there, hasn't there? I mean, the portrait photographers have always known there's a certain amount of retouching, but no, I'm not taking 20 pounds off of you.
Darn it.
And so there's always been that out there, and good for photography, for recognizing how important they are in our world, and for rejecting the idea that they're just going to create something that's not real, that's fake, by caving in and retouching every little thing that this customer, this client wants, and then creating something that people look at and say, well, that's not David at all. He doesn't look like that anymore. He maybe looked like that when he was, a lot younger, but not anymore. And so I think that's important. There are copyright issues there, though, right? And so the more of that they do, not so much Photoshop, you're going to be okay. But the more AI elements they include in an image, the less copyrightable that image becomes. You can't protect it. And that really matters if you're doing some commercial work or other things. And so AI is at this point not considered creation in a legal terms. People debate that and they argue it and that kind of stuff. And just saying right now, in legal terms, AI is not considered creation and therefore can't be copyrighted. So copyright can be sort of murky enough. Protecting an image can be kind of murky enough. And now you start adding, and that was an AI image, and that was an AI image, and that was an AI image that I included in this. Now you've made it almost impossibly murky to ever protect anyway. And so that there's all kinds of new considerations in that.
As I get a chance to sit down with you in your office here, I want to ask about how this plays out. Then we'll move on to a bunch of other stuff, but everyone's so curious about AI. You go to Capitol Hill, you sit down with the lawmaker, you're talking with them about AI. It's not only where is it going, so it is used responsibly and ethically, but it's also where it's been. I would imagine you've had conversations with them about training data and how we even got here and scraping images. And it's got to be a hornet's nest when you sit down with lawmakers to talk about this topic on behalf of your membership.
Yeah. Here's the strange thing. It was a crazy mess at the beginning of last year, right? So March and April, maybe February, March and April and May of 2023, it was the Wild West. It was, nobody knew what was going on. Everything was happening. There was craziness there. And everyone was saying, well, it's too late. The cat's out of the bag. Remember that AI is doing amazing things. It's doing amazing things. And it is going to create a better world for a lot of people. I mean, a lot of people, maybe all of us. In its wake, though, it's doing jobs that other people had done, right? And so as the result of that, it means that jobs are being displaced. People are losing work, and the projections for how much work will be lost in all kinds of fields, in the customer service fields and just all kinds of, the estimates are astronomical. So we love AI. It is going to displace a lot of jobs, but we love AI, but it's going to displace a lot of jobs. And so that's kind of one of the realities. The big thing that hit, especially in the photographic world, is the generative AI. So there's AI and then there's generative AI, right? This small area of AI, just a small area of AI, and it's generative AI. And some of the players in the generative AI area just scraped the internet, right? They just took everybody's work without permission. And everybody thinks, well, they got away with that, but they haven't necessarily. There are lots of serious discussions and serious bills and things. It's not too late talking about forcing some of that to be rolled back. Now, these companies made billions of dollars in the meantime, so they've won either way in that circumstance. But the continued scraping is occurring. but not nearly at the rate we think of what it was early on, right? Because there are bills out there. We're supportive. We're on several bills that are about transparency. That is, they have to show where they're getting the information that they're training their AI on. And so there is legislation that's out there. Our problem, the world's problem, actually, is Congress, our Senate and House, have through years of conditioning taught themselves to move very, very slowly and do very, very little. And this sounds like a political commentary. It's really not. When you look at the output from Congress, it's so much smaller than what it used to be. I mean, it's just a tiny fraction of what it used to be. So they are conditioned to not go very fast. And because of that, AI is this enormously complicated issue. And it's hard for them. They're going very, very slowly, and they're not sure what to do because they taught themselves to do so little. And those are from actual conversations that I have with people on Capitol Hill inside, different congressional offices and different Senate offices. And I mean, we have those conversations, and they say, yeah, it's just hard. I mean, we're having a hard time moving because there's so many moving parts. So they can't focus on any one thing. They keep looking at the whole picture, and that stops you. It's like when your mind just rambles. It's hard. You need to stop and focus at some point on the thing at hand, and they have a hard time doing that. So not sure what's going on with AI up on Capitol Hill. There are other copyright issues. I mean, up there that don't include AI. But AI on Capitol Hill is a giant one, and we think a really interesting one here. We think that our and we think professional photographers ought to be careful, to choose companies, partners that they work with that don't steal and that don't abuse children and don't abuse animals and don't, what I mean? There's a morality and companies that we choose to work with, and this should be no different. The issue of AI and knowing how they, and it's a funny thing is you can do a little AI search on how each individual companies trained their AI, and how much of it was used from scraping the internet. It's really not difficult to find out, and so yeah, we think that people should be careful about the companies they partner with, whether it's your belief in how chickens are raised or how AI is trained or any of that. So there's some interesting issues.
Before we move on from Capitol Hill, how frequently are you talking to lawmakers?
Monthly. Sometimes sometimes when there's something bigger going on, it's more than that. We were there in late November, and we were there just a week ago. So we were a little bit more this time. And so we have been for years and years and years. I mean, it's one of the major things that we just decided back in 1999, actually, that the largest association for professional photographers, we weren't that large back then. We were about 10,500 paid members. But the largest association for professional photographers is not up on Capitol Hill. And it didn't make sense. And so that became a priority for me. I just felt like we needed to get ourselves up there and start having a presence. And it took a lot of years for us to start having a recognized presence. I'm really happy with where things are right now. I mean, they call us, up on Capitol Hill when it has anything to do with photography, when it has anything to do with small creators. The House Admin Committee, Senate Rules Committee, House and Senate Judiciary Committees, the Copyright Alliance. But I mean, so I sat on the board of the Copyright Alliance for a while, so that was part of that. But the Copyright Assembly, when it was first created, needed us there because of the Napster issues that were going on, and they needed a friendly face. That's a fun story. But and so the Copyright Office, they know us, they consult with us. We have a sort of a love-hate relationship with the United States Copyright Office, but we're there quite a lot, and it's almost all it's almost all about copyright issues, like the Case Act or the small claims process. I don't know how familiar you are with that. It's been a couple of years now since it passed, but that just wasn't something we supported. That was something we wrote. That was a PPA idea that we had lobbied for years and years and years. And then then we finally got other organizations. It took a long time, but we finally got the other creator organizations on board. And then we were able to get that passed. And so for the first time, there's actually a small claims process for copyright holders, and they are getting paid. And it is bringing people to the table to negotiate with them. And that never existed before. And so those are the kinds of things, that we're working on up there on a regular basis. Our major issue now is modernization of the Copyright Office processes, which are, so laughable, antiquated, that it would make you want to laugh if you didn't need to cry so much over it, to be honest. It was just like, they're so bad. And that's what we're working hard on right now. It's really about modernization of the Copyright Office processes. And they're listening to us and they're mad at us because, we go to Congress, which is their boss. And so when we don't get what we want out of the Copyright Office, which is never, we go to Congress. And, if we get enough good friends working on the same issue in Congress, then they start telling the Copyright Office, you need to do this. We're going to pass some legislation to make you do it. And, it's a strange system, I know, but one that's close to us and one that we feel serious about as a responsibility to the industry.
We appreciate
it's how we were founded, right? I mean, we were founded out of the famous photographers of their day back in 1868, the Matthew Brady's and the Abraham Bogartis and the Hesslers, the Lincoln, portraitist, and those guys. There was a predatory patent that was had been filed. And these guys all got together and said, wait, we can't sit there and let this happen. So they all got together and they created a little organization to help fight that patent and won. And that organization they created was the National Photographers Association, the NPA, which then changed its name later to Photographers Association of America, which changed its name later to Professional Photographers of America. So that was us back in 1868. So we've technically kind of always been on Capitol Hill, but we went through a big hiatus. We went through a big hiatus there for a while.
You were around before it was cool.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Speaking of which, I remember walking back and forth across past the Capitol from the House side to the Senate side to the 100-degree weather, just nobody listening to us. And I spent years, doing that a couple times a month. It was long. So to be where we are now is pretty exciting. Not very exciting to our members. Copyright is like the water fountain. You don't really care where the water comes from. You just want it. You want it there when you push the button. And I think that's how people feel about copyright. I don't really want to know too much about where it comes from, but Definitely when I push the button, I need it there.
Thank you for the update on AI. I know it's on a lot of our members' minds. Let's change topics to the other thing that's on everybody's mind. The economy and inflation. From the smart people you're talking to, are they thinking it's going to cool? And how have you observed customers behaving during this high inflation period?
It's been the most bizarre thing. And this is one of the areas that I think that our members could do a better job of just being more. I mean, you're small businesses, right? They're all small businesses and entrepreneurs. And that means that they should be need to be up to date on where things are. Sorry, my computer's making noise here. I don't know if you can hear that. Where they need to understand what's actually going on. Not, where you don't get financial data, you don't get it from Fox or CNN or NBC, or you don't get your financial data from there. You don't get it from Facebook. You don't get it from your Facebook friends or from inflammatory, but that's not where financial data comes from. You get it from the U.S. Census Bureau, the financial section, which tells you exactly what people are spending and what they're doing. And the more you look at it, the more you start to understand, okay, so durable goods are way up and housing starts are starting to increase. That means the economy is about to start turning again. And it's turning in the short term. And they can sit and watch all of this. And, my argument has been, yes, you're creators and you're small businesses, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't take some responsibility for understanding what's actually going on, not what our highly politicized media is telling us is going on, right? So you can just throw all of that stuff out from both sides, in my opinion, and get real data that will help you make real decisions. Um, I I think it's been interesting. The strangest thing, going back to your question, Pat, is consumer behavior is admittedly more unpredictable now than at any time I can remember. And what I mean by that is, we were spending, crazy spending coming out of the pandemic, which we shall not name, right? Everybody's so tired of talking about the
Yes.
C word. And so we were spending, out of that. And of course, that caused inflation, right? This giant amount of consumer spending causes inflation, right? So they're spending more and more. Prices go up, up, up. Supplies start to go down, 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 and there's a giant amount of inflation there. And so to change that in 2023, the end of 2022, the last quarter of 2022, and in 2023, the Fed started raising rates. Everybody understands how that works, right? You raise rates to try to get people to stop spending so much so that supplies increase and demand goes down and prices stop. They don't necessarily go down. Sometimes they do, but they stop going up, right? So the inflation stops. And that didn't happen. So they raised rates several times and people were still spending crazy amounts of money. Durable goods were still just flying off the shelves, cars, refrigerators, you know what I mean? Things like that. So, they were flying off the shelves. And so sometimes as professional photographers, our members think, oh, well, that's a million miles away from me. That doesn't really affect me, but it does. All of it does. It shows you, it gives you a peek into where your consumers are about to be and how to position yourself with them, and maybe how to change a marketing message, to make your photography at that moment more palatable. I'm not saying drop prices necessarily, by the way. I'm just saying, but sell to them based on emotion and on, hey, your child, regardless of inflation, your baby is going from 1 year old to 2 year old, right? Your child's about to go from elementary school to middle school, or high school, or playing sports, or it's about the emotion, no longer just about, hey, here's what we can do. We'd love to do this. It's time to do your photographs. That's got to be more about emotion. And so it's been interesting because I don't think anybody can really predict consumer behavior right now. That said, to answer your question, the one you asked about 17 minutes ago that I started answering, that's all my answers, right? The I love this stuff. I get excited about it, as you can tell.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's interesting. I think the answer is, yeah, I do expect that inflation will start coming down because spending is starting to come down and people are spending on kind of different things. The things that they are spending on are generally a little bit bigger and taking more money, and they're not like there's a little bit less travel. There's less travel going on. There's less spending going on right now. And the result of that is it looks like inflation will start to come down. And you know what? I want to make sure everyone understands. I don't look at the political aspect of this. I'm not talking about one president being elected or another president being elected or any of that. Because presidents are going to be elected and they're going to come and go, and Congress is going to be Congress, and that kind of thing. I think it's important for real business-minded people to depoliticize stuff. Mm-hmm. And just look at numbers. Focus on numbers, and why the numbers are what they are. And yeah, it might be a policy decision by a politician, a president, or it might be a policy decision or something created by Congress. But Congress doesn't do policy. But it is true. But just focus on the numbers. And get rid of all the other garbage, all that other baggage. To run your business, you just need to know why the industry is doing what it's doing and why those finances are behaving the way they are, and why inflation is still up, and why inflation will probably be coming down now. Um, and I do this in a program at Imaging USA almost every year. I'm not this year, but I do have people who come to the program and come up to the front afterwards and say, "This is the reason I come every year, is I know you're going to give us real numbers that have no hint of, Republican, Democrat, Facebook, CNN, Fox, and that you're going to avoid all of that stuff." And I think all of us should. I think we make better decisions if we take all of that baggage out of it.
Listen, the only presidents I care about are the ones in my wallet, to be honest. That's what I care about. And you mentioned imaging. This is going to drop like the Tuesday before Imaging USA. It's a big commitment by the organization every year. Why is it so important that Imaging USA as a show happens, and what does the organization get out of it?
Well, this will surprise you some. What the organization doesn't get out of it is much money. Because when, the kind of show that Imaging USA is would sell on the market for, legitimately $850, $950. It would be a very expensive show on the market. And when I got here, before I came to PPA, all right, Pat, this has been 27 years ago. I was working as director of national corporate marketing for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and I used to go to marketing. It was mostly focused on consumer marketing and cause related marketing, and I used to go to an event every year, and it was $1,500, $1,495. I remember that. And it was a room of about 30 people, had a reception that was a few little cheese cubes and some pretzels. That was the reception. And we sat in there, and it was $1,500 back then. And we still have to go to some conferences every now and again that we send different tech staffers or, different staffers to different conferences. They're expensive. Ours is so cheap. It was $219 a couple of years ago, $229, and then $239, and it's just, which barely pays for the parties alone. And then we have all those keynotes, and we have, all of the networking avenues. This year, we're introducing a really cool thing called United Behind the Camera, which is it's just a togetherness event that's going to be a lot of fun. It's right before Networking Avenue, right in the same spot. And all of the educators that we have, and all of the pre-cons that we have, and all of that, the leadership meetings that are there. So we have a lot of leadership meetings at Imaging that are very important as we get together with our PPA council and our board of directors. Different meetings and with just all of our members. It's the only place. You ask why it's so important. It's kind of the best place for us to just get to and talk and interact and rub shoulders with our members, for a week. And so it's big, and it's also just a great show. It's so much fun.
Yeah.
And we're really excited. You're going to have Pat's going to have a giant presence there this year, folks.
Telling you.
So he's going to be there, and that's going to be exciting, Pat.
Yeah, you're not talking numbers, but we are having a party for this show. So if you're going to Imaging, come hang out, because we are going to have fun, and I'm going to get the chance to meet you, which I'm really excited about. Now, listen, we've taken you over time, and it's so generous that you've given us these inside thoughts of what's going on from the CEO's office. I want to end this way. Is there something that you wish every PPA member knew about the organization or what your team is doing that they can take so they're better informed as a member as to what's happening at home office?
Yeah. We compete with all of these companies around us here in downtown Atlanta for talent, for good people. And we can't necessarily compete with them on price. We try to be competitive, but we can't necessarily compete with all of these folks. And so sometimes it's hard for us to keep good people. But we have amazing people. And here's the way we're able to accomplish that, because we sell them on cause. We hire people here 51% based on who they are and 49% on what their skill set are. Now, everyone else hires 95% on skill set and 5% on, I don't care, just get your job done, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how businesses work. We hire 51% on who you are and 49% on skill set. We value skills just as much as everybody else does. But the reason they stay, that who you are, part of them, the reason they stay is because they care about this cause. We sell cause. Our cause is the importance of photography, professional photography in our world, the keepers of our societal memory, the keepers of our history, our world history, the cause of professional photography and how important it is. And then the second part of that cause, there's three prongs, the cause of small business, because small business is important to our world. When times get tough, it's not big business that pulls us out of the economic doldrums. It is small business that saves us. Small business pulls our irons out of the fire. And so it's the cause of professional photography in America and the cause of small business. And the third prong on that is, and the cause of entrepreneurism in America. The idea that you can still want to go into business for yourself and work hard and learn a skill and create something and sell that and work and do good things for other people and create family, mementos that that will last for generations in their families, that you're making a difference through what you're doing. The cause of photography and small business and entrepreneurism is what we preach here. And I wish everybody knew just how committed PPA staff and its board of directors, they work so hard. That board works so hard. They give up so much of their time. They're photographers also. They give up so much of their time. And sometimes I see people being critical of them and I just think, well, that's just not fair because they work so hard. And then our national council as well. I mean, they come in once a year and they devote a tremendous amount of time, to help PPA be successful. I wish we could inject into our members an understanding of that, Pat, just of how much this organization, staff, board, council, committee members, how much they care about this industry. This is very much a cause for us. It's not just an association. And I think that shows in our membership. I think our membership responds to that, because we are far and away the largest organization representing photographers anywhere in the world. And it shows that our staff and our board and council, that they care that much. I wish there was a way for our members to see that.
David Trust, thanks for your time. Thanks for your service. And thanks for joining us on the Professional Photographer Podcast. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure, Pat. Thank you so much.
That just happened. Hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the Professional Photographer Podcast. I am so excited to continue our journey, and I appreciate you being a part of each and every conversation. Before I go, can I ask you for a favor? If you enjoyed this episode, leave us a comment. Tell us what David said that stood out to you, or something that inspired you, or maybe a question that you have for him, because the folks here at the podcast can make sure that we get it in front of the team in Atlanta. But leave a comment and let us know what resonated with you. Also, we want you to like and share and buy a billboard in your hometown about how great we are. You know how that stuff goes. The other thing is, you heard about what PPA is doing for photographers. So if you're not a member yet, just a reminder, you're kind of missing out. We're talking resources like equipment insurance, top-notch education, and a supportive community of photographers ready to help you succeed. It is designed for photographers who are serious about growing their business in a sustainable and profitable way. At PPA, you belong here. Discover more about membership at ppa.com. That's ppa.com. I'm Pat Miller, the founder of the Small Business Owners Community. Thank you for joining us on this journey. I appreciate that you're tuning in. I'll be back soon with more tools to help you build your business with the Professional Photographer Podcast. See you next time.